ambassadors have. There have been regular high-level visits between Pakistan and Japan, particularly during the last 3 years. In what way and to what extent do you think that these high-level exchange visits have been able to build the common understanding on the international and the regional issues between the two states?
You see, I would say that this visit of the Japanese Prime Minister was after an interregnum of 5 years, although there have been visits from our side to Japan. The visit is very significant because it is taking place in a very dynamic international situation and regional situation in which you see transformation of relations between China and Japan and the whole region, India and China, Pakistan and India, and so on and so forth. But this is really a restoration of the kind of relation that Pakistan and Japan enjoyed before the nuclear test carried out by Pakistan in 1998, and for that matter by India as well. So now this is a period where the Japanese government has decided to renew its relationship with Pakistan, again in terms of economic assistance and technical assistance and other areas.
And now, Mr. Atiq, if I may ask you, that the purpose of this entire visit was to exchange the views on the whole range of bilateral relations.
As my honorable.
What I would like to ask you is, especially deliberate on, is that which are the more areas that can be tapped or explored to further consolidate bilateralism between Pakistan and Japan?
Actually, as you know, historically Pakistan has been, Japan has been one of the largest donors of Pakistan, and Japan has been providing us technical and financial assistance in power, health, education and water purification projects. The major actually assistance was until 1998 was the yen loans, and that was suspended. And then since then, Pakistani government on highest level has been trying to restore all those assistance and aids and grants which were stopped, should be restored. And finally, the present government, the credit goes to them, they succeeded. And in the recent visit, as Japanese Prime Minister Koizumi announced that the restoration of the biggest, I would say, the assistance is the yen loans. So this visit is a very, in respect of Pakistan perspective, it's very successful. We achieved actually to for Japan to restore all the suspended aids.
Okay. Now coming back to building understanding, when you look at the discussions or the consultations on issues that have taken place, generally we have seen that during the course, not only during this visit, but even prior to this visit or at the levels of the foreign ministers, the issues that have come under in consultation are the economic cooperation, terrorism, the nuclear issues and so on and so forth. What I would like to ask you is that whereas we find commonalities of views as far as the economic relation is concerned, as far as terrorism is concerned, we could see that there was some sort of a misunderstanding on the issue of non-proliferation. So do you think that specifically this particular visit of the Japanese Prime Minister have been able to address, the two states have been able, the two governments have been able to address the issue of the nuclear non-proliferation?
So it seems to me, I'm of course not privy to the details of the discussions that has taken place between the Japanese Prime Minister and our leadership, but from all accounts, it appears to me that we have been able to satisfy the Japanese concern regarding the proliferation of nuclear technology from Pakistan to North Korea. That has been Japan's one of the major concerns. You see, apart from the testing that took place in 1998 by Pakistan, on which Japan suspended assistance, the subsequent breakout of the news that Pakistan has been helping North Korea and Iran in developing their nuclear technology.
Absolutely.
That has been of major concern to Japan, particularly that of North Korea. And I think the Japanese government and the Japanese leadership and people have been greatly justified in expressing concern whether that cooperation has been terminated or not, whether it was caused by the decision and actions of an individual, or was the government of Pakistan involved in it. So long we have been able to satisfy the Japanese, as we have satisfied the world community, that this was an act of an individual, and in this act the government of Pakistan was not involved, or the senior government officials were not involved. This is not the policy of the government of Pakistan. To that extent, we have satisfied the Japanese concern, and I think that is why the Japanese are prepared to restore their full relations with Pakistan. But of course, Pakistan has gained in its stature in recent years because of its cooperation in the war on terrorism, because of its improved relations with India, because of its growing importance as a strategically located country with ability to provide access to Central Asian countries and Afghanistan, and being next door neighbor to Afghanistan, which was the center of terrorism in the last few years. So because of all those reasons, Pakistan has gained importance internationally, and Japan is also paying attention to the growing stature of Pakistan and the need to restore relations with Pakistan, because one of the mistakes, sorry, I'm being a little bit longish here. One of the reasons why things turned in the direction of so much militancy and extremism was that the United States suddenly withdrew its interest from the region after the withdrawal of the Soviet forces from Afghanistan and left the region entirely on its own. Not only that, they imposed a sanction on Pakistan, which meant that Pakistan was left at the mercy of forces which were extremist. If the Americans had kept their involvement in the region, probably the rise of fundamentalist forces in this region would not have been as strong. I wouldn't say it would not have taken place, but perhaps would not have been as strong. Similarly, if the Japanese had kept their interest alive and kept supporting our economic, educational, cultural program, probably not so many young people would have gone to madrasa and joined the madrasa. So I think the international community has to realize that Pakistan has to be helped on, and poor people in Pakistan have to be helped in areas of education, health, employment, in order to keep them moderate and not go in an extreme direction.
So do you think that is exactly it was this particular problem to which the Japanese ambassador to Pakistan was pointing out when he has, and 2 days back he was quoted in one of the local dailies, that when the Prime Minister of Japan visits Pakistan, Japan would be discussing with Pakistan issues of that are relevant to the Japanese security, on terrorism, and also he further added that more reforms in Pakistan. So do you think it was in that direction that the Japanese ambassador was referring to?
One of the major directions. Of course, as I said, that is terrorism, the nuclear issue, relations with India and Pakistan, or the question of Japanese membership, permanent membership of the Security Council. These were the 4 major topics on which the discussion took place. And of course, bilaterally, it was the restoration of the yen loan to Japan, which had been yen loan of Japan to Pakistan, which had been suspended after the nuclear test conducted by Pakistan in 1998. So all these issues were important issues and were discussed between the two sides.
For you, Mr. Atiq, I would like you to deliberate on that 3 agreements have been signed at the end of this or during this visit. One, how do you see this as an achievement? 2 is that an agreement on the technical cooperation has also been signed. How can we further use and work and explore exploring the potentials of the agreement on the technical cooperation?
See, this is always two-way traffic. And Pakistan, as I said earlier, and Japan, they have a very long-term relationship, trade and economic relationship. In various fields, in automobile, Pakistan is the biggest importer of Japan goods. And so in that respect, actually, And there has been a technical assistance on the water and water purification projects and rehabilitation projects, and which were suspended. Now, and this was required Pakistan to restore all these suspended aids, to continue all those projects. For example, the Faisalabad water purification projects. So that was a little bit on a hold, and now we got this restoration of this aid and Tosa barrage and all that. So definitely, it's actually this will help us to continue our I would say the hanging projects, and further as we go along, you will see more agreements and more when there will be more trade and economic will happen, then it will be a more benefit to our projects as well.
Even regarding the cultural exchanges that might take place between the two, we have the Pakistan-Japan Cultural Association.
Exactly, which has been, I mean, it was signed in 1957, and since then we have, and see, Pakistan and Japan has a historical relationship. We have historical roots, the Gandhara and archaeological or rich archaeological sites, which are the major focus for the Japanese tourist. Now, with the control on the terrorism in our country, and this will also benefit actually, in fact, to bring back all those tourism actually, which we were actually having in the past. From Japanese used to come a lot, going to these our northern side of Pakistan.
Ambassador Alam, I would like you to have your views particularly on the joint efforts which they have talked about concerning, that have been identified for the disarmament and the non-proliferation of the WMDs. What probably can be those joint efforts which Pakistan and Japan together can identify in order to, or what would be their approach or their strategy to really look towards it, into this issue?
In this area, there are 2 points of major concern. One is the illegal sale or sort of leaking out of nuclear material, which may fall into the hands of terrorist organizations or terrorists, who may be able to then make a dirty bomb, as they are called. And the other is the kind of proliferation that took place from Pakistan, allegedly in regard to Libya, Iran, and North Korea. Now, the Japanese would want to make sure that, first of all, neither of these two things are going to happen as far as Pakistan is concerned, and secondly, that Japan and Pakistan would cooperate to ensure that this does not happen from other countries either, that North Korea does not proliferate or Iran is not able to proliferate. Of course, Libya has wound up its own program completely, and IAEA has given that certificate. But Iran and North Korea, there is still, North Korea is a recognized nuclear, not a recognized nuclear power, acknowledged nuclear power. I mean, they have themselves claimed that they have nuclear weapons. Iran denies it, but Iran keeps threatening that it is going to restart its enrichment program. And Pakistan was in a very bad situation when the discovery was first made, or it was first announced that Pakistan was involved, or Dr. Ghadir Khan were involved in proliferation. So these are the things I think the Japanese would first of all want to strengthen Pakistan's command and control authority, so that there is absolutely no leakage of nuclear material from Pakistan, officially or unofficially. Secondly, that Pakistan would actively cooperate in taking steps which will lead to strengthening of the non-proliferation regime. They will be very happy if we were to sign the CTBT
I think
agreement.
there has also been a talk of sharing of information.
That, of course, is there. That goes without saying. But you see, the major thing is the conclusion of the conclusion of the fissile material cut-off treaty and the progress on the CTBT treaty. Although CTBT treaty is, for all practical purposes, dead because the United States itself has not signed it, and there has to be 40 key countries who must sign that treaty for that treaty to become effective. But nevertheless, the thing is that Japan keeps on urging countries to sign the CTBT so that at least we come to a stage where no test is at least carried out, and then from there maybe it is a situation of rollback, disarmament of nuclear weapons, better control, better security on the leaking of nuclear material into the hands of the terrorist organizations. So Pakistan can play a role, and Japan and Pakistan can cooperate considerably well in these areas.
I'll ask you my next question also, that Japan is one of the aspirants to the Security Council seats. Now, as on the other issues, we see unanimity of views between Pakistan and Japan, but as far as the UN reforms are concerned, there are two different views which are there. Do you think that those differences can have any impact and slow down the increasing bilateralism that has taken place between the two countries?
I do not think so. Japan is a mature country and they have a mature political system. They know that if they do not get the permanent seat in the UN, it will not be because of Pakistan.
Absolutely.
It will be because of other countries, powerful countries, countries who have veto power in the Security Council and with whom Japan is not necessarily on the best of terms, or at least Japan has not been able to satisfy their concerns on many issues. But for us, you see, the main concern or main principal position is that UN Security Council is already not a very democratic institution. If we add more permanent members, it will become less democratic and less effective. Today, only 5 members are able to stop the Security Council from playing its role of keeping peace. Tomorrow, if you add 3 more members, then you will have 8 countries. And it is that many more vetoes in there. So what we really need to do is to create a system in which we can, to some extent, neutralize the ability of the permanent members to cast a veto. For instance, if it could be done that not only one member, like the UN, like the US in case of Iraq, it was a single country which overruled the UN Security Council and went and attacked Iraq, while 14 countries had voted, or at least 13 if we leave UK out as well. So what I mean to say is that we should have in the reforms a system whereby one country will not be able to prevent the UN from taking action, or one country will not be able to overrule the United Nations from stopping an action. Now the US condemns United Nations and thinks that it is a useless organization, but if you look at the record, I think the US has used its veto power more number of times in the UN Security Council than perhaps any other country. So it was the responsibility of the United States to go along with other member countries of the UN in implementing the resolutions approved by the UN Security Council and making the UN a stronger body. But in reality, the role has been quite different. And right now, when the US talks about reforms, it seems really it wants a body which can become a rubber stamp to the US decisions and policies. So our stand is that by adding more Security Council, permanent members of the Security Council with veto powers, we are not going to strengthen the UN, we are going to weaken the United Nations, which will be bad for the international community as a whole. So that is where we are.
I would like to add back to your initial question, would that affect our actually idea? And the same question was asked to the Prime Minister Koizumi as well, and he said no, because he actually appreciated, and he said he understands Pakistan point of view, because that's the international community is divided. It's not only Pakistan, so we actually understand, and it won't actually affect our ongoing relationship. So actually the world understand, and it's not as our colleague said that it's it is something which is actually need to be more actually talk on this, and yes.
Thank you. I must thank you both gentlemen for being present with us. Viewers, if you have listened to the very candid and frank expression of views of our two very distinguished guests, We look forward for very good and very intense bilateral relations between Pakistan and Japan, which we have always had, and hopefully in the coming years this relationship is only going to not only intensify but further strengthen. I thank you very much for joining us this evening. We would be back next week with some new topic and new guest. Till then, it's Khuda Hafiz. Thank you.